Bob Seger, a legend, someone who has impacted many of you throughout the years. It was amazing to see just how much his songs resonate with you as I've been bringing a couple of his pieces of art to this channel. And it's time I check out another one. Let's listen to Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. And this one's called Against the Wind. Are you ready?
Seems like yesterday, but it was long ago. Jane, it was lovely, she was the queen of my night. There in the darkness with the radio playing low, and the secrets that we shared, the mountains that we moved, caught like a wildfire out of control, till there was nothing left to burn and nothing left to prove. And I remember what she said to me, how she swore that it never would end. I remember how she held me oh so tight. Wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. Against the wind, running against the wind.
Wow.
We were young and strong. We were running against the wind.
I'm going to pause here real quick for copyright reasons, but also I don't want to forget my thought. I find it interesting. First of all, Bob Seger has a very unique voice, and I love that. There's something warm, something nostalgic that feels a little bit like coming home in a way, right? When you, depending on your generation and age, but where you can listen to this music and it makes me think of artists like Keith Green and Johnny Cash and these artists that have a very distinct voice. In German, we call that Wiedererkennungswert. You can recognize who this is by the voice. I also love the storytelling of his songs and this idea of going against the wind, being young and strong, and that feeling of reflecting on the past makes me think also of his song Like a Rock, where you can, as you're older now, reflect on the past, but you see things through a different light. You know how they say hindsight is 20/20? As we get older and more mature, we view things differently. In our youth and in our passion, we may not see things the way we do once we have learned a bit about life and matured. But I find it interesting that the lyrics don't say, I wish I knew then what I know now, but it says, I wish I didn't know what I didn't know then. Almost perhaps like this idea of ignorance is bliss. I wish I didn't know. I wish I wouldn't have been broken or tainted by what I learned. Because of what I didn't know then was ignorance, right? It was passion, it was love, or what we thought was love. But all that it led to, perhaps now, has not served me anything that I wish I knew now, possibly. But also the idea of against the wind, because we're speaking of fire and burning everything up. When you have fire that goes against the wind, the smoke will go in your face, right? When you have fire and it's going against the wind, that wind will now blow all of that passion, fire, flames back at you, which is not ideal. And then here, speaking of running with all your strength against the wind.
And the years rolled slowly past, and I found myself alone, surrounded by strangers I thought were my friends. Found myself further and further from my home, and I guess I lost my way. There were oh so many roads. I was living to run and running to live, never worried about paying or even how much I owe. Moving 8 miles a minute for months at a time, breaking all of the that would bend. I began to find myself searching for shelter again and again. Against the wind, little something against the wind. I found myself seeking shelter against the wind.
Wow. harmonies.
against the wind. I'm still running against the wind. I'm still running against the wind. Against the wind. Still running against the wind. Running against the wind. Running against the wind. Against the wind. See the young man run against the wind. Watch a young man run against the wind. Watch a young man running against the wind. Now they're running against the wind. Against the wind. Let the cowboys ride against the wind. Against the wind. Let the cowboys ride against the wind. Now they're riding against the wind. Against the wind. Against the wind. Against the wind. Riding against the wind. Against the wind.
Wow. Bob Seger's songs are profound. I feel like superficially looking, we can see the theme of the storytelling and, the things I did and knew when I was young versus now. To me, that's superficially speaking, just at first sight, surface level. But as you go deeper and we dive deeper into the psychology behind what this means for us as people, I find it so interesting to think about death and life. Because where wind to a young person could be excitement, where young, bright children running around in the backyard playing cat tag, and we're running against the wind representing something refreshing, something fun, right? It's fun to have the wind coming against your face. You're enjoying yourself. You're flying kites. You are enjoying what that breeze means. And you're running against the wind as if wind is something that symbolizes adventure and excitement and air to breathe, right? You're fresh, you're young, you're strong, you're running against it. We tap into our adolescent years and we find ourselves falling in love and having that passion, thinking we will forever be with this person or that this is what it is. And we think we have it figured out. And now in our youthful ambition, sometimes foolishness and stupidity, we're running against the wind. The wind being the force that drives us to want to succeed and to achieve and to, get that love that we long for or pursue that person we're interested in or get that job we hope to have or that degree we're trying to achieve. That wind symbolizing still youthfulness, still ambition and life. And then you get older, as the song so beautifully paints this picture of. And now you're still running against the wind, but now the wind has become perhaps the symbol of death. You're running against it. You're running against time. And I love how they put together this lyric video because that gauge, as if in a car, fit to this idea of the motorcycle, fit to the idea of a car, like we see in Bob Seger's other song, where it symbolizes this idea of being on the road, on a journey. Or on a horse, as with the cowboy in the end, this horse running wild and free. There's this dance in life between life and death and between freedom and responsibility where we long to be free, to express ourselves, to be who we want to be, accomplish what we want to accomplish. We want to make life mean something. We want to live fully. Otherwise, what's the point, right? But at the same time, we have a responsibility because if we just tap into all freedom, now things get tricky, right? If my freedom now conflicts with yours, or my freedom means I do whatever I want and now it hurts you, where does responsibility come into play? And so there's this dance, this duality in life between death and life, freedom and responsibility, between longing for relationship as is painted in this song, but also loneliness. Because as we get older, we find ourselves becoming lonely. We realize that people die, that relationships end, that things change. And that wind we were running against so youthfully, so full of excitement and ambition, now becomes that clock that's ticking, the clock that's running out like sand flickering, falling through our hands, that gauge in a car that is getting closer to empty. That is slowing down as you run out of energy. The youthfulness is gone. Your body is getting older. You can't do the same things you could. And that same wind you ran against before now becomes perhaps a symbol of death. You're running against death. You're running against all odds. Now you're still chasing other things. Now it's deadlines. Where there was freedom, now you have a responsibility to gauge what stays, what is left out, as the lyrics say. And it's still a running against the wind. You're still going against something, swimming against the stream, going against the wind. I love the harmonies that kicked in and how that line kept tagging and tagging. The play on blue, red, and white, very American of him. But just a song that I feel, again, on surface level would imply this idea of storytelling and life, but on a deeper level, it makes you really think about just how interesting it is that no matter how young or how old we are, we're still running against the wind. The wind just possibly symbolizing different things for us at different stages. And that then poses the question, is it there a time to rest? Is there a time to stop running against the wind? Or perhaps to reframe how we view the wind. As we get older, that wind we're running against might be, oh, I'm just trying to keep everyone happy. I'm trying to pay the bills. I'm trying to meet my deadlines. And perhaps there's something about tapping into that youthfulness again, even if just for a moment, and allowing that wind you're running against to be a symbol of life and the fact that you're still breathing, that you're not 6 feet under yet, that you are still alive, and that wind can blow your hair around and you can take a deep breath and know that it's still the same thing. We're still running against the wind, but maybe we're not trapped. Maybe we don't have to fight so hard. Maybe we can be wild and free. And because we're still alive, and there's something beautiful in the mundane and even in responsibility. There's a freedom to be anything you wanted to be. And I don't mean that in the sense of just, manifest a Porsche and it'll be in front of your door, but in the sense of you can decide today who you're going to be, who you want to be. And if you're not happy with where you are, you get to still decide and make decisions to make that change, even if it's from the inside out, especially from the inside out. Please know you are loved and you matter. I hope you enjoyed watching and listening to this with me. Subscribe for more music from around the world, psychology, philosophy, where education meets entertainment and encouragement. My name is Rosalie. I'll see you on the next ride.